Hi, I'm Jim Lowe. Welcome to one of my high country video chronicles. This is day 2 of my autumn Eastern Sierra trip, and today I find myself going into the Conness Lakes. So my destination today is right up there at the base of Mount Conness. I'm a little surprised to be making this trip today. The Inyo National Forest and a large portion of the forest in California have been closed due to all the wildfires. Just recently they've started opening up, and when I came up here, Inyo was still for the most part closed. They had announced several partial openings, but this area wasn't one of them. So my plan this morning was to fish in Yosemite again. But I figured, well, you know what? I don't have access to the internet. They may have opened up things while I've been away from home. Let me go check and see if the gate's open. Sure enough, I drive up to Saddlebag Lake. The gate's open. There are signs announcing a partial opening and simply saying that the majority of the campgrounds are closed, which is great. Means I'll be able to go up to Conness Lakes, fish for some golden trout. It's been quite a few years since I've been able to fish the Conness Lakes. If you've been subscribed to the channel for a while, you might remember the trip that I made a couple years ago, early season. There was still snow on the ground, and I was probably, I don't know, knee-deep in snow, and ended up fishing the creek that comes out of Greenstone, and then fishing some of the lakes at the lower elevations. So I think this is going to be the first time I've been up to Conness in maybe 5 years. That doesn't sound right, but I suspect it might be. I was thinking last night, like, do I even remember how to get up there? So we'll see. This is Greenstone Lake, which is a good brook trout lake. The creek, at least in the early season, you can get some big brook trout up in it, presumably looking for rainbow reds and rainbow eggs. Don't know if there'll be any big brookies in the creek today. Should be pretty close to brook trout spawning season. I don't know when brookies spawn in the Sierra. I've never actually run into any spawning brookies, but mid-October, it's getting colder. You'd think they'd start doing their pre-spawn work and start heading up into the creek. So we'll see if we see anything. So I'm going to take the trail, cross the creek, and then work my way up this way. There's a creek that flows out of Conness that actually flows down into this creek that feeds Greenstone. And then so I'm basically going to be following that timber there until I get to the top. And then you can see that kind of escarpment there. That it looks like a shelf. And it'll take you right up and over to the first lake. I'm going to be fishing lakes 3 and 1. There are 6 Conness lakes. Not all of them hold goldens. They were all, well, 5 of them were planted with goldens at one point in time, and the goldens don't exist in all of them anymore. The goldens that are up there now are self-sustaining for the most part, is my understanding. And so I know for sure there's fish in lakes 1 and 3. I've fished 4 and 5. I've never caught anything in 4 and 5. And I don't recall seeing anything in 4 and 5. That doesn't mean that there aren't fish there. It just means that I haven't seen any. I'm perfectly happy to fish 1 and 3 when I come up here. So here's the creek that flows into Greenstone. Now, let's see if I can find any brookies. Well, no big brookies. So, on to Conness. This is the lower section of the creek that flows out of Conness. I guess you could call it Conness Creek. And it's got small golden trout. So, you know, if you have kids and you want to get them into golden trout, you know, this is a really easy, I don't know, hour or less hike to this little stream, and they'll be able to catch goldens all day on dry flies. Now, along with the Cottonwood Lakes, these are probably the best known golden trout lakes in the state. Therefore, they are oftentimes crowded. So if you plan to come here, just be aware of that. You're not going to be alone. Even on a day like today, where the Forest Service literally just opened up the backcountry, there's at least one person in front of me, and there are 4 guys with fishing rods behind me. So yeah, just be aware. This is no secret golden trout fishing lake. It's well known, it's well fished. Now it's just open over the bluff, and then another bluff to Lake 3, and I'm there. Here we are, Conness Lakes Basin. That's the Conness Glacier up there, and as you can see, it's had better days. It used to be, well, it used to look like a real glacier. Now it's a shadow of its former self. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be crossing the creek here and then going up to Lake 3. Lake 3 is up over that way. Lake 2 is up over this way. Lake 2 is fishless, and it has been for, I don't know, at least a decade. Decade to 15 years, I think. Maybe 15 years ago was when I checked it out. It might have been 2 decades ago for all I remember. And it's really, I mean, it's super deep, but it's really nothing but just a big pothole. Now this creek can be productive for, you know, 7 and 8 inch goldens at times. It's super low right now, as you can see. But this run, when it's not super low, does tend to hold fish. Here's Conness Lake number 1. And I'm heading up that way. Actually, I think I'm going to go that way. I've never gone that way before. I'm taking the steep route. I'm just wondering, I know from 2 to 3 there's a saddle, and I'm just wondering if this will get me on top of that saddle faster and make it a little bit faster going. We'll see. That worked. A little pain for a lot of gain. Now it's all downhill, and if I had gone the other way, I'd have to backtrack. I want to be on this side of the lake, so it worked out. So today I'm going to be fishing my my 8-foot 4-weight, as I usually do, with the same line I used yesterday, which was a Scientific Anglers double tapered trout line. I'm going to be fishing 4X. I'm going to start off fishing my my impressionistic patterns, the soft hackle beadhead hare's ear. I'll probably fish Rickard's Calabatus nymph, simply because I've never fished it here. I'm kind of curious to see how it does. I know the Stillwater nymph does well here, so if I don't catch fish, if I spot fish and I don't catch fish, I'll switch flies. Knife-wise today, I'm not carrying the same knife I was yesterday. Today I'm carrying this knife, which I guess it's a Tim Ellis custom knife. I guess you would call it the large Bobcat. He said he was making a bunch of Bobcat knives, which are 3.5-inch blade, and I looked at it and said, hey, you know, could you make me one of those in 5 inches? And he said, sure. So what we ended up with was a 5.5-inch knife, but you can see, I mean, in terms of wilderness blades, it has everything that I want. You know, it has that guard, which I think is important to keep my hand from slipping when I'm fishing. It does well on wood. It creates really good feather stakes. One thing it doesn't do is it doesn't spark a ferro rod, but that's because it's you know, it's a brute to forge knife, and I find that a lot of brute to forge knives don't spark ferro rods well, which is fine because I've got a lighter, so I don't really need it to. But anyway, I brought this along today because I'm not in heavy timber country, and you know, this should suffice for whatever I run into today. So I'm just gonna sit here and observe a bit while I'm tying on. You know, there's a pretty good ripple on the water, so I'm not gonna be able to see much. I can see some shadows. You know, I can see a shadow right there by right off the bank. It's probably a rock, may not be a fish, but if there are active fish and if they're cruising and they're cruising shallow, hopefully I'll be able to see them. If they're active, maybe I'll be able to see them flash when they take something. So what I am going to do though is I'm completely redoing my my leader setup from yesterday. My leader from yesterday has a couple nicks and scratches on it from fighting fish and casting and everything else. I'm going to completely cut that off, put on new tippet, so that way if a decent fish takes my fly, you know, those nicks don't cause me problems and don't cause the tippet to break. Okay, so I'm gonna crouch down as I approach the bank here, and I'm gonna make my first cast, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 feet from the bank, just in case there are any fish that are up here close. The sun's behind me, so I'm going to cast a bit of a shadow. I need to watch my rod. I'm not seeing any active fish, so I'm just going to fan cast. Again, I'm about 6 feet from the bank. Just going to present off the edge of those rocks. 15-second countdown. Pick it up, do it again, just to make sure that there aren't any fish hugging real close in there that I'm not seeing. Now, I would prefer to sight fish, but these fish can be a little spooky, so I'm going to take my chances prospecting at first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fish this deep water here first, and then I'm going to go over, fish those rocks, and then I'm going to fish my way down. Also, this is the kind of lake where you can fish for hours and pick up like 3 fish. Or you can fish for hours and pick up none. The fish are here, but you know, whether they're active or not is a whole different matter. So I'm going to make my way up here by the rocks for a bit, see if I see any active fish. So I've almost worked my way back to where I started. Still haven't seen any fish. I lost my flies, both pairs. I'm not quite sure how, but I'm tying on some new flies, and I don't quite know which way to go. So I could go ugly and flashy, which is sort of the Stillwater nymph. Stillwater nymph is green and orange, which is kind of flashy, kind of represents a scud, represents a damsel. Or I could go small. You know, it's winter, it's cold, bugs get smaller as the year progresses. Midges are prevalent now. I mean, there was one time when I fished the lower lake where the only thing that I could catch fish on was a size 20 black gnat. Not only that, it was a size 20 black gnat that had to have the wings cut off. That was the only way I could catch fish. So I don't know. I mean, on this lake, for me at least, it's usually a hit or miss. It's usually on or it's not, and it doesn't matter, you know, what sort of bugs I try. If it's off, it's off. So I think I'll put it on the midge, and we'll see how that goes. So it is starting to warm up, and what I'm doing is I'm just presenting like every foot along this rock, because there's a lot of undercuts, a lot of shadows, and it's cold, so maybe the fish aren't willing to move that far. So I've been fishing for about an hour and a half. I haven't caught anything, haven't seen anything. I'm going to start working my way to the outlet, and then I'll follow the outlet down to Lake 1, and then I'll fish Lake 1. To go back and look at my website and see if I wrote a chronicle about the last time I was here. I suspect it was 3, maybe 4 years ago, and I got skunked then. So I don't know if that says something about the fish population, or maybe it's the conditions I'm fishing in, or of course maybe it's just me. Now, as you make your way around the lake that way, there's an inlet there, and that inlet will take you to Lake 4, and then Lake 5 is right up there. And Lake 5 is worth a visit, even if you're, if you're not a fisherman, even if you are a fisherman, it's worth a visit because it's absolutely stunning. You know, some of these lakes have a slight glacial tint, but Lake 5 is, you know, it's like the epitome of what you'd expect in glacial water. It's just amazing. Deep, deep aqua blue color. I typically like fishing that far bank. I'm gonna hope that the active fish are in the shallow water where it's warmer. I'm gonna walk the bank clockwise, and hopefully I'll be able to spot some active fish. I have to admit, going this way can be hit and miss. When it's good, it's really good, but you know, there are times when there are simply no fish in this shallow water. So it's a bit of a gamble. Early in the season though, it does tend to be really good, you know, especially in these channels. And I keep saying early in the season, and by that all I mean is when there's a little bit more water than there is now. I mean, I've had days where you come out here and you know, all you need to do is you cast over these channels, and all this is it's the old creek bed, right? And you just pull your fly right over and wham. This is one of my absolute favorite spots on the whole lake. You can see how this channel comes in from the side, the channel comes in from down here, and then they meet, and then they go over into that deeper water where they come across. And this tends to be a pretty good spot for me. Okay, I better move positions. So ideally what I want to do, and I'm not having a great time doing it now, ideally what I want to do is be able to wade out there, present across this channel, cast downstream, and then pull my fly so that it goes perpendicular to the channel going across. So for example, make a cast across, then downstream, and I say downstream because the wind is blowing it this way, and then just like you would a streamer in a stream. So you're probably wondering, okay, Jim, why did you mend upstream there before you were mending downstream? Well, it all has to do with presentation. In this situation, I want it to sink, and then I want to start my retrieve, and I want to pull it straight in towards me. If I let it bow, what that's going to do, it's going to cause the fly to move faster than I want it, and that's going to be unnatural. Now, the reason I did it the other way before, the reason I went out and across and then went down was because I wanted to present laterally to the fish. So presuming that the fish are face into the current and they're stacked up like this, I want to present to as many fish as possible. Now when it's straight down from me, then I don't want to do it that way because I'll have no control over how fast it goes. So when it's here, I'm just going to retrieve it like I normally do, and I want as straight of a line between the fly and my rod tip as possible. Okay, time to move on, I think. Now from this point on, I think without waiting, I'm not going to have much opportunity. I can try to get to that. Now in this situation, that's better. You can see that the water closer to me is moving faster than the water farther away. And so I've got to continually mend upstream because I want it to sink. And now I can start a little retrieve. Nothing. And I'm expecting a strike. Close to that transition area. strip, pause, let it drift, strip, pause. Yeah, not much happening here. Okay, it's 2 o'clock, and I don't want to be here much longer, so I'm going to bypass all this. It's all good looking water, but it's pretty much the same as what I've been presenting to, and I haven't seen any fish, so I'm going to bypass it, hit some of that deeper water for a little while, and then head back. Well, that was a fun day. I didn't catch anything, but it was great to sort of renew my acquaintance with this lake. I think I've come to the conclusion that I shouldn't fish it past mid-September. I hope you enjoyed this video chronicle, and thanks for coming along. In a desperate attempt not to get skunked for the day, Jim is going to go sneak up on some tiny brook trout.